man think that he will receive anything from God. So you want freedom? Don't expect it. Why? Because you are unstable. I want to look at Genesis chapter 49, verse 3 and 4. Here's Jacob talking to his son. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. And look how the prophecy started, and then look how it ended, right? In the beginning, the verse right before it, these glowing words, because this is who you were, right? This is who you're supposed to be, my might, the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, the excellency of power. But you are unstable as water. You will not excel. You cannot excel because you went up to your own father's bed and defiled it. So I'm thinking the excellency of dignity. What dignity is there in going up to my couch? You couldn't stay the way that you were born because you're unstable as water. And it shows in what you've done to me, your father. My firstborn, my might has humiliated me. You're unstable. Unstable as water. And I was even thinking, how can anybody build on water? Right? We hear the parable of the rock and sand. But how can you even begin to build on water? It's impossible. Even if you gathered all the supplies, you tried building on the sea, you put the planks together, you nail them together, you do whatever you know how to do, it will sink. It's unstable, right? You need a foundation to build on. And without it, you can't even build upwards. You will not excel. Without a good foundation, you cannot excel. 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 1 says, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but forasmuch as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So there is no more birthright for Reuben. What he was born with is now someone else's. And even their descendants acknowledge this. So there are consequences to instability, to living a double life. There are consequences to this. You can't excel. You're in the same cycle. You can't grow. Every epiphany you come to, every lesson you learn, every revelation you're given, it does nothing for you. It just crumbles. Now, whatever seed, just like the parable of the seeds, whatever seed is thrown on you doesn't bear fruit. Why is this? Because seeds grow where they're planted. There needs to be stability, consistency. And this is why Pastor even mentioned how church hopping is bad. People that can't stay in one church, it's not good. And I know it seems since COVID, it's made it so easy for people to window shop churches. You can visit one church one Sunday. From the comfort of your home, you can visit another, and another, and another. But the reason why this isn't good is because you only grow where you're planted. And that takes time. And of course, you never see the growth at first with every seed. But as long as the seed stays there, as long as nobody moves it, nobody plucks it up, it can receive the nutrients it needs. It can sprout. It can blossom. It can bear fruit. Now, once it bears fruit, there's no mistaking what kind of tree this is. Right? If we go to Colossians chapter 2, verses 6 and 7, it says, as ye have therefore received Christ, Jesus the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Rooted and built up. What has roots? a tree. Now, what's built up? A house. A house needs a foundation. That foundation is Christ. I know we spoke about Jesus, the foundation, in August and September. And Brother Johnny, I remember he mentioned, he said, you can't build the house on sand and then shimmy it onto the rock. You have to begin with Christ. You start with him, making him the foundation, because he is the chief cornerstone. So we must be rooted and built up in him. Psalms chapter 1, verse 1 to 3. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. You see that, day and night. There's consistency there. Verse 3, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The key word there is shall. Right? Even the beginning of the verse, he shall be like a tree. So it's a process. Right? The tree doesn't start as a tree. It starts as a seed. Give it time to germinate. The seed becomes a seedling, which becomes a sapling, which becomes a tree. So God did not call you to be water. He called you to be a tree, rooted and grounded in him. But the tree needs light. It needs water consistently, right? You need the word of God. You need to pray. This is the kind of growth, the kind of growth that lasts, even with a tree. It doesn't happen overnight. You never see a tree fully spring forth and blossom overnight. It takes time. So we need to stay in the presence of God. And even for a lot of us, even if you slip up, run right back to him. Now, you may not be able to see the growth, but change is taking place. You're growing, and you will bear fruit, but you must stay consistent. And even faith is likened to a grain of mustard seed, right? We saw before the scripture says nothing wavering, right? Waves waver. A seed is not liquid. It's solid. Even if it's small, it's still solid. Now, when it comes to prayer, because I know we've been talking about continuing in prayer, I'd be lying if I said I received every single thing that I've prayed about. But it's saying, even still, let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. You may say, well, Lord, I asked about all these other things and I got a no, but still ask. If anything, continuing in prayer is helping you to become more stable. Because if I can come to the understanding that God can do everything, then there's nothing that I won't bring to him. I will never doubt his power. Now, I've even noticed in myself, there are some things that I refuse to pray about because I'm saying, well, this is not possible. When I think about it, it's nothing big. It's just like, I've never seen this happen before, so I'm not even going to bother praying about it. But then I'm reminded of what God said to Sarah. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? So I need to get to the point where every time I pray, every time I call upon God, there's nothing wavering. But how can I get there? By being consistent, continuing in prayer. I need to get to the place where every time I pray, there is nothing wavering, not even a little bit, not even the shadow of a doubt. God, I know that you can do this. And God will give you an answer to that prayer, no matter what it is. Right? As Pastor says, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, sometimes it's wait a while. But you will get an answer. Now, for a lot of us, we've gotten a few no's in a row. So then we think, well, it's always going to be no. So what's the point of praying? And you doubt that he'll ever say yes. But don't apply the answer to one prayer to all of your prayers, because you'd be very surprised at what he's getting ready to say yes to. So just keep praying, keep believing, right? So we're talking about consistency. And like last week, we spoke about Job. That was our example for the week. This week, I want to talk about Daniel. not only Daniel, but Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So if we go to the book of Daniel, chapter 1, read from 1 to 7. It's going to be quite a bit of reading from here. It says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well-favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, to Hananiah of Shadrach, to Mishael of Meshach, to Azariah of Abednego. And so we see here Jerusalem was besieged. The vessels of the house of God were taken and put in the house of Nebuchadnezzar's God. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were taken and given new names. So it's a different home, different culture, a different way of life, different king. And since Jerusalem has been besieged, to many, it may look like their God has either lost or has abandoned them. So since they're in Babylon, you think they just do like the Babylonians do, or at least eat what they eat. In verse 8, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So Daniel has already made up his mind, right? He purposed in his heart. He already planned that I'm not going to defile myself with the king's food. I'm not eating anything that's offered to idols. It'll defile me. Now, if he was unstable as water, he would have eaten. He would have defiled himself, right? This is a different time now, all right? We're not back home. Let's just do this. Let's just eat. But he refuses to. Now, this is food that he was supposed to be eating for 3 years before he could go to the king. And now he's saying, I will not eat. Verse 9, now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. The prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse, liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me endanger my head to the king. So the prince of the eunuchs is saying, look, you need to eat this, because if you look unhealthy to the king, then my life is in jeopardy. Verse 11, then said Daniel to Melzar, and the prince of the eunuchs had said over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. Now, a lot of people tend to believe that this was a fast. But I'm seeing here, it was not a fast. Because Daniel said, give us 10 days with pulse to eat and water to drink. And he said, look at us afterwards to see how we look. Compare us to those that are eating the king's meat. If we look worse than everybody else, do as you please. But it turns out that after 10 days, they looked better. So then Melzar took away their portion of meat and wine, the things that Daniel didn't want to eat. He's saying, all right, I'm not even going to give it to you anymore. So then they kept eating and drinking this way. So unless it was a 3-year fast, right? You can't call this a fast, right? Because Daniel never ate the king's meat. And even after these 3 years, Daniel would never eat the king's meat. But this was just to prove to them that we'll be fine without this. And so with Daniel, right, he's saying to them, I never ate these things back home. I'm not eating it now. Right? So this is consistency. Right? He's consistent. And so we see in verse 17, as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. So what do we see here? We see that there were magicians and astrologers there, all with their own curious arts from all of their different homelands, all with their own knowledge to share. Now, if these Hebrews were seen to be better than everyone else, and it's obvious, don't you think that the magicians and astrologers would go to them? Maybe ask, what are you doing? How are you so smart? What makes you 10 times better than us? Don't you think that they may have even tried to exchange information? Tell us what you do, and we'll tell you what we do. Give us your arts, we'll give you ours. But these Hebrews did not partake in this exchange either. They didn't want to add sorcery, magic, astrology. We are going to do what we've always done. We are going to pray. We are going to seek the Lord. And God blessed them for it. He promoted them. Even in this, they were consistent. If we look at Daniel chapter 2, from verse 1. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. And the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. And spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your house shall be made a dunghill. But if ye show the dream, and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream, and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. So here the king, he had a dream, troubled his spirit. He was losing sleep over it. He's saying to all these magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, I had a dream. I want you to make known to me the dream, because I forgot it. But also give me the interpretation. And they're asking, even though he told them, tell us the dream. And he's saying, look, you're stalling now. All right? Because you don't know. And so all of their lives are in jeopardy right now. Right? So So he's threatening all of them. I'm going to cut you all in pieces, make your homes a dunghill, if you don't tell me this dream. So now, of course, time is of the essence. Everyone wants to know what the dream is. All the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, everyone's panicking, right? But if we go to, I'm going to jump to 16. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. And Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So Daniel tells the king, give us time, and I will show you the interpretation. So Daniel, he's going all in with God and telling the king that you're going to have an interpretation of this dream. Now, this is some faith. But what do? Him and his friends, they pray to God for mercy. And then the dream was shown to Daniel. So Daniel knew this is all in God's power. All right, this is what, Lord, have mercy on us, because our lives are forfeit if we don't give an interpretation of the dream. But then God shows him the dream and gives him the interpretation. If we jump also to verse 26, the king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. So, when the king asks him, are you able to make it known to me? Daniel, he has the king understand, look, this secret that you demanded of us, none of your magicians, none of your astrologers, the soothsayers, the sorcerers could bring this to the king. But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets. He is the one that showed me the dream. He is the one that is giving you the interpretation of it. All right, so Daniel is giving God all the credit for this. If he hadn't, and he brought the interpretation of the dream, Nebuchadnezzar would say, well, it's only because I have the best magicians, I have the best astrologers, I have the best of all this in my kingdom. God, but Daniel said none of them were able to do this, only God. And so if we jump to verse 46, then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshiped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. And the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So here again, Daniel is being promoted when he shows the king his dream and the interpretation of it. Of course, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges Daniel's God. And also, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego were also promoted. If you look at chapter 3, read from verse 1, it says, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." So the king sets up this image. He tells everyone, when you hear the music, fall down and worship it. Whoever doesn't is going to be cast to a fiery furnace. And of course, most of us are familiar with this. Verse 8, "Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." So just like before, we've seen this before, these Hebrews are not doing something that everyone else was doing. Right? At this point, though, they weren't even asking them not to serve their God. They weren't asking them not to worship. They were just saying, when you hear the music, worship this God. Just bow down before the image when you're prompted to. Verse 13. "And Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So they're saying to the king, we are not careful to answer you about this matter. There's no need to defend ourselves about this. So just like Daniel, they've already purposed in their hearts not to bow. There's no explanation. We're just not going to bow. No matter what happens, we're not serving your gods. We're not worshiping your image. And they said, even before they were thrown in, if it be so, our God, who we serve, is able to deliver us. But even if not, nothing's changing. So they gave credit to God before they were thrown in. He's the reason why we won't bow, and he can also save us from this. But if he doesn't, we're still not going to put any God before him. And so we know what happens. Nebuchadnezzar gets upset, gets angry. He throws them into the fiery furnace, and he sees them unharmed. Right? I'm just going to jump to verse 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. It was because of this miraculous thing, because God came through for them, that Nebuchadnezzar now gives credit to their God and commands the people to worship this God. Because there's no other God that can deliver like this. He's never seen it before. Even his God, he's saying, my gods can't do this. And so this is the decree that he was made. And he also promotes Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, we're going to jump to chapter 6 of Daniel, starting from verse 3. It says, then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. This is a different king, King Darius, after Nebuchadnezzar had already passed and the kingdom was given to King Darius. So verse 4, then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful. Neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So since this new king, once again prefers Daniel above everybody else, then these other princes and presidents, they need to use something against him. It's not his work ethic. It's not the way he works. He does everything so well, perfectly. But the only thing they can use is the law of his God against him. Verse 6, then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. So, if you can remember last week, we spoke about Job and what Satan had said to God about him, right? He said, skin for skin, all that a man has will he give for his life. He was so certain that mankind is so selfish when it comes to their lives, they will do whatever it takes to live. And once you mess with that, they'll turn on you. And so, we see in Daniel these examples. The first time their lives were in jeopardy was when it came to the king's dream, and they called upon their God to live. The second time, with the 3 Hebrew boys, they weren't asked not to call upon their God. They could just worship this other God. They were just asked to worship another God. They did not. Now this time, Daniel is asked to stop calling upon his God. This is all they can find against him. And they're saying for 30 days. Not forever, for 30 days. But in verse 10, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. So the interesting thing here is nothing changed with Daniel. Right? Daniel, it said he knew what they did. He knew about the law. And yet, he purposed in his heart, as at other times, not to comply. Nothing changed. Even the window remains open. You think most people would at least close the window. You know, no one can hear me. I can still pray to God for 30 days. No, I'm going to keep my window open towards Jerusalem, as I've always done. Whoever hears, hears. And so Daniel continues to pray. Nothing, this is consistency. And I'm not going to break this consistency, right? I will maintain my ways before my God. Nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to stop him from calling upon his God. In verse 12, then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Right? You can't alter this law. You can't change it. 13, then answered they and said before the king, that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. They're counting. And nothing has changed. Still, 3 times a day, Daniel is praying. Right? Daniel, they're saying he's breaking the law. 3 times a day, he's breaking it. Verse 14, then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. See, not with Daniel. He had no idea what was going on. He loved Daniel. It set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. So whatever way I can save this man, he tried it all. He tried it all day. Verse 13, then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is, that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. Now, it's so interesting how the way someone can live can impact somebody else. This God that you refuse to break the law for, he can deliver you. I've done all I know what to do, right? As a king, I can't save you. I can't deliver you, but your God can. So now Darius is depending upon Daniel's God. So, 17, and a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. And the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. And the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Servant of the living God. Verse 21, then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed his God in his God. Saying no manner of hurt was found upon him, right? So not only did the lions not bite him, they didn't scratch him. They didn't touch him. No manner of hurt. It was the same with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Not even their clothes were singed. There was no damage at all. God does it again. No manner of hurt was found upon him because he believed in his God. So even in that, he did not waver. 24, and the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions had the mastery of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, wherever they came at the bottom of the den. So what was supposed to happen to Daniel happened to his enemies, right? They didn't waste time. The lions got to work right away, ate them. In verse 25, then King Darius wrote unto all the people, nations, and languages that dwell on all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So Darius sees for himself, just as Nebuchadnezzar saw. This God, he delivers, he rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. It is this same God that delivered Daniel from the lions. And once again, of course, it's not only Daniel that credits God for this, Darius, but it's because Daniel remained steadfast, even in his belief. He remained consistent, and God, at other times, came through. Now, I was thinking, even if Daniel complied and did as they wished, that wouldn't have stopped them from conspiring against him. They would have tried to kill him another way. But it was because he stayed firm, stayed steadfast. God took care of him. God saw his faithfulness, and God protected him. And so, when looking at these examples, I wonder if there may have been a point in their life that they weren't like this. Maybe as children, when they were back home, they weren't this convicted, where if this had happened before, it would be a different outcome. But it was because of their consistency. It was this consistency that built up this conviction in them, this faithfulness to their God. And they stood firm. And so we must also be consistent. No matter what comes our way, no matter what kind of persecution we're faced with, we must be consistent. And to think that Daniel couldn't just say, I'll wait a month. I won't call upon my God for a month. It'll be fine. No, he said, no, nothing's going to change. Because my relationship with God is more valuable to me than my own life. And that's the place that we need to come to. But it only comes through consistency, right? Through continually seeking the Lord, having that relationship with him. Right? Why would you give everything up for someone that you don't even know? Someone that you have no relationship with. Right? But Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they knew their God. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how you try to present it to us, what we're supposed to give up or sacrifice. We're not doing it. We're not bowing. We're not complying. We're pleasing our God. Because at the end of the day, he matters more than you. At the end of the day, we all have to answer to him, the same God. But it was through this consistency, right? If we can be like this, where we refuse to go a day without praying, without seeking him. This is what the Lord is looking for, right? And a lot of times with a lot of us, we're not challenged in these ways. We're not challenged like these men. Oh, this is maybe a bad day, and then you don't pray. Say, okay, like that's nothing. But the Lord's saying, you need to come to a place where no matter what comes your way, the first thing you do is pray. The first thing you do is acknowledge me, where it's literally second nature. I don't have to think about it. If something's coming my way, some form of danger, I'm calling on Jesus. First thing. That's what the Lord is looking for, right? Because the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are saved, right? So let us be consistent. I don't know if we're going to continue the study. I see everyone's coming, and it's also past the time, 11:04, so we're not going to take comments or questions. We're just going to stand at this time and close with prayer. I'm just going to ask if my mother could lead us in prayer.